Good.
Wait a couple. I'm doing good. I'm gonna go turn off my Alexa. Her music, she's just going crazy.
That's like the cutest scene ever.
Thank you.
I love it.
If you could,
and you too.
Thank you. Well, I figured it's a holiday magic class, so I had to show up holiday style. And this is, I don't know if you guys can see or if it's just nothing but brightness. There we go. We're having some light Christmas going on up here in beautiful Lake Tahoe. So I'll just wait a couple more minutes before, or a minute or two before we really get started. Please bear with me.
Cold here with no snow.
Oh. I'll send you some of ours because I can't do anything with it. So I'm not skiing this year. I'm not doing anything with it. So to me, it's kind of pointless. It's just bringing droves of tourists instead.
Oh.
Yeah. But whatever. So it's all good. It's all wonderful. It's all divine. It's all perfect.
All of my friends back home in Philly have been sending videos of all the snow because they got like half a foot yesterday. And I'm like, I want some.
Right. I saw a report today that somewhere in the northern East Coast, they got so much snow in this last storm. It was like the same amount of snow as the whole winter combined last year.
Oh yeah, last year we got snow twice. And in the city, it didn't even stick. So yeah, it's like the last 2 years, really, we didn't get much.
Right.
Now I'm in Florida, where it's just windy.
Well, there's a major part of me, especially since the metal that's in my body really, really hates the cold weather. I could definitely use some Florida weather, that's for sure. Okay.
Come visit.
Oh, thank you guys. That makes me feel good. And it's so awesome to see all of your beautiful faces. Please bear with me. I have never done anything like this before, ever. I have been a part of many classes, but I have never myself been the person who was teaching. So, you all know me. My name is Andrea Donnell. I am mother of Star Seeds on Instagram. I am a huge history buff and have been since I was a little girl. I love history of all kinds. I am actually going to be teaching from my heritage and from my background. I am Sicilian and German and Scandinavian and Celtic. So that's basically where my origins are from, and a lot of our holiday that we celebrate here in the US is pagan, and Northern European pagan. So there are multiple holidays. They have been celebrating the winter solstice since the beginning of time. Mostly because they were all agricultural societies, and so the sun was basically their entire life. And during the winter, obviously, was the hardest times of the year. People were dying, getting sick, famine, things were dying off, and the winter solstice was the big, huge celebration of the coming of the sun. It was the hope of the spring. It was the hope of new life coming forward. So there's multiple different pagan holidays specifically. The Romans celebrated what is called Saturnalia. I might have said that wrong. Saturnalia. There it is. And that is dated back to the 5th century BC. Some scholars say that there's evidence of it even before that, but it was basically the celebration of the god Saturn, who was the god of agriculture. His equivalent in the Greek mythology is Kronos. So he's actually a very mysterious deity in the Roman culture. However, he was a very important one because he taught humans how to grow their own food, which was basically life. Part of some of their major rituals, and why it was such an important holiday, it was their biggest and most celebrated throughout the year, because it was a role reversal. So some of the things that they would celebrate and rituals that they would do is the masters of the house would then become the servants of the house, and the servants of the house would then become the masters of the house. So it was the importance of this holiday had a lot to do with relieving stress of the day-to-day culture of being a servant, being a master, which and eventually helped not the servants not uprising, because they got to celebrate and be just like everybody else at least part of the year, so or for even just a little period of time. So the dates of the Saturnalia Festival was December 17th, which is why I chose to do this today. So today is the start of Saturnalia. It lasts for 5 days. There's some really, really fun things that we still use today. They decorated their homes with evergreen, which was a reminder that life will still come around. It's still ever flowing. Especially in places like Rome, where wintertime, everything starts to get brown and dirty, yucky and dying. And having evergreens was the promise of more of new life and everlasting life. So they decorated their homes that way. They gave gifts to their fellow neighbors and people around, things like fruit cakes, little statues of deities, just to incorporate and let each other know that they are grateful for their presence in their life, similar to what we do today. Lots of feasting, obviously. So this time of year, the fresh meat was plenty because they were killing off a lot of the cattle that wasn't going to make it through the winter. So there was lots of big feasts. It was a 5-day long drunk feast fest in Rome. You can imagine what a Roman festival was like. Let's see, one of my favorite things that they do, and I think there's still some people who practice it today in a couple other cultures. I was raised in a Sicilian household and we had our own form of this practice. But there is you bake a cake and you put a gold coin or a gold ring in the cake and everybody gets a slice of the cake, and whoever gets that gold coin is known as the Lord of Mischief. So he's the one that gets to go around and mess with everybody, do little jokes here and there, chase the girls, nothing extreme, obviously, but he was the Lord of Mischief for the house, and got to have lots of fun. And it was just a reminder that life doesn't have to be so serious. And in Roman times, life was extremely serious. So yes, I love the Lady of Mischief. So it'd be really fun, especially, obviously a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about today is not 2020 oriented, but that's okay. You can create these rituals for your own house this year and then carry them on next year, should you decide to. So there was a famous Roman poet. His name is Callias, I think it's called. He was known to be called this time of the year as it was the best of times. Also, it was the most wonderful time of the year, or all of the other things that we hear today. It actually started from him, and that Roman poet as well. So the Romans went through and conquered. What was that? Was that not even a word? Conquered throughout Western Europe and carried along a lot of their holidays with them, especially since in that area they were pagan as well. So they were celebrating the cycle of the year. They just had their own spin on the legends and whatever things were going. So it was a lot easier when the Romans went through and they conquered, for the people to convert, because they already had something around that time. So that brings us to Europe, which is actually even before winter solstice was dated back even before Saturnalia. Winter solstice has been celebrated for thousands of years, for what I said earlier. Thank you. And in the Celtic area and Scandinavia, it was winter solstice or Yule. In Scandinavia, Norse part of Europe, it was Yule, and they have their own special origin stories. Their origin story has a lot to do with the holly god, and where did I just lose it? Which was a symbol of darkness. And it was a fight between the young oak king and the old holly king. And it was basically the old oak king, who was the bringer of the light, would dethrone the holly king, who was the bringer of darkness. And that was the coming of the sun again. So there's some discrepancies on who exactly those people are. Some say Odin and his brother. It just depends on which area of paganism you're looking into, or which you're drawn to. That's one of my favorite things about learning about paganism, is paganism isn't just one small sect. It's basically any religion that is earth wheel of the year based. So there's lots of legends that can go along with the wheel of the year, basically just depending on where your origins or where your interest and draw is to. One of my favorite legends, I wrote this down, was a Celtic legend in the winter solstice. And the winter solstice is more close to what the Christians adopted in order for them to convert pagans, because that was pretty much the entire world at that point. They needed to make Jesus a real person, and he has a death, but he didn't have a birth date. So they used this legend kind of in my idea. They're like, well, they know the legend, son. Okay, here, you listen. Okay. And the legend of Newgrange, which is a place a small place in Ireland, which there is a place where the Irish buried their, the ancient Irish buried their dead. And for 17 minutes on December 21st, the sun illuminates the entire passage into the tomb. The alignment of this day has happened for 5,000 years. It will happen for 5,000 more years, as long as we don't do anything to screw up the planet. The alignment of this ray represents the sun god placing new life into the womb of Mother Earth. It is a hope of new life in spring. They celebrated the rebirth of the sun, S-U-N, not S-O-N, as an agricultural society, and their very survival depended on it. So the Egyptians did the same thing. They have a legend as well that goes along with the rebirth of Ra, who is the sun god. So the rebirth of the sun is the most important part of this holiday. And to me, you can turn that inwards. And going through this time, I'm not sure, a lot of us are in Mastermind, and we're on the call with Reverend Brianna Lynn, and she went through some amazing things about winter. And knowing now what I know about these holidays and learning about winter was a time of solstice, of solitude. Solstice itself means stand still. The people in the ancient times knew that the sun during that time wouldn't move for 3 days. So it was a standstill, like it was in the same place in the sky for 3 days. And so solstice means we get to stand still and think and go through what our last year has been, what we've gone through, what we've accomplished, what we've healed. And then also sit and think about what we're going to be calling in for the next year. And that has a lot to do with this fire behind me. Fire is a cleanser and cleansing. So bonfires and fire and light and candles and Christmas lights and all of those things are a huge part of solstice and Yule, because it's the coming of the light again. It's the no longer stuck in darkness. It means that there can be life and that no one's getting sick and dying anymore. No more famine. There's food coming. So it was such a huge celebration, more so than any of the other parts of the year because of that. So that's some background history. I could literally talk like an hour on each one of these holidays and each one of these different things about these. There's just so much information, and I probably get to create just a course just around the winter solstice, because like seriously, Jeanette, it seriously has missed so much on modern culture today. Like people, the holidays is just rush, all these things. We holiday, concerts and celebrations and parties and presents, and like we've completely missed the point of sitting still and solitude and being thankful and grateful for this incredible, crazy, fucked up year, no matter what year it is, because it's life. And I can say that I was looking back in my histories, I have the time hop and whatnot, and there has been a status every year for probably the last 8 years where I was stressing and freaking and, oh, Christmas is ruined, and oh, I can't do this, and oh, money, and stress. And I completely lost the magic of what this holiday really is about, and taking care of your neighbor and being open and loving. And it doesn't have to be like this big, huge, elaborate gift. Like that's one of the consumerism is one of the things that has been the hardest thing about the holidays, all of them, not just this one especially, but all of them. They've lost the magic because everything is so gimme, I need, instead of realizing like, no, we have and have had an amazing year. We've had an amazing harvest. Yes, sometimes, as even talking of my own garden, I didn't harvest exactly how much I wanted to, but that's okay. I still got a harvest. And we all did. We all still got a harvest at some point throughout this year. And that's what this time was about, is to sit and thank Mother Earth, Father Sky, Father God, Mother God, whatever deities, source, spirit, universe, for this amazing cycle that is life. So we're going to talk about the who's who and those what's what of our holidays today. The who's who. So obviously Santa Claus. Everybody knows Santa. Well, Santa is an extremely complicated character for the reasons that I spoke of earlier, because paganism was a multitude of different things in one. And so same thing with Santa Claus. Santa has multiple different names from multiple different cultures. He's been called Kris Kringle. He's been called Papa Noel. He's been called Old Man Winter. He's been called Santa Claus. I don't even think I can say that right in German. But he has so many names. But the main thing that he has and that he has in common is that he was a gift giver and a guardian of the children. And so there's multiple. We'll start with the Yule version of Santa Claus. I tend to lean towards the Norse and Scandinavian side of things, obviously just because of my own origins. But let me find it here. I totally confused myself. No. Okay. So the Norse version of Santa Claus was someone in the village would be chosen as Old Man Winter, similar to the same recipe as the Romans choosing the Lord or Lady of Mischief, but it was more on a grand scale. Old Man Winter was most likely a representation of Odin, or was Odin himself, which is where the long white beard comes from, the hooded cloak. They also believe that that's where the stemming of the reindeer came from, because Odin's chariot was pulled by two Norse goats. Oh my gosh, Michelle, that's awesome. I love that. Also, the ham, the Yule, it was a Yule boar back then, and the Yule boar has something to do with Thor. I'll get there in a second. Interesting, this person would dress up in a hooded fur coat and have a white beard. The Norse chosen to be Old Man Winter would travel around the community and join in Yule celebrations. If you know anything about the geography of where the Norse people were from, they would get snowed in, and they would literally be, the only way into the in and out of the home was through the chimney. So the person who was Old Man Winter would be coming through the chimney and would actually be delivering goods and foods and things to get the people through the winter. So things like fruitcake, citrus oranges, dried oranges, lots of things that would outlast, dried nuts and berries that would outlast the winter and keep the people fed. So that's where the Santa down the chimney came from. Old Man Winter equal Father Christmas equal Santa Claus. Where did it go? Not to mention that it's Scandinavian. I already told you about the goats. Okay. Then there's the Saint Nicholas, which is the other version that most people know as who Santa Claus is. Saint Nicholas was a bishop who lived in the 4th century BC, 80, I believe. And he lived in a place called Myria, which is in Asia Minor, now the Turkey area, or part of ancient Greece. He was a very kind man. His parents died when he was young, leaving him a huge fortune. And he would go around his village and nearby villages and would take care of other poor families that were in need. So here, one of his most famous stories is he tells of a custom of hanging up stockings to put presents in. It goes like this. There's a poor man who had 3 daughters. The man was so poor that he did not have enough money for a dowry, so his daughters could not get married. One night, Nicholas was secretly dropped a bag of gold down the chimney into the house. This meant that the oldest daughter was able to be married. The bag fell into a stocking that had been hung by the fire to dry. This was repeated later with the second daughter. Finally, determined to discover the person who had given him the money, the father secretly hid by fire every evening until he caught Nicholas dropping in a bag of gold. Nicholas begged the man not to tell anyone what he had done because he did not want to bring attention to himself. But soon the news got out and everyone received a secret gift. It was thought that maybe was from Saint Nicholas. So because of his kindness and because of what he did and going out of his way and being a bishop of the church, they eventually made him a saint. He is the saint of protection of children and, oddly enough, of sailors. He was buried in a church in Turkey, but sometime during the Roman conquests, they took his bones from his burial site, and they actually moved him to a church that's his name in somewhere in Italy. I can't remember the name of it. Bari, Italy is where his church is. But when in the 16th century, Northern Europe was after the Reformation, after the Christians had gone through and pretty much wiped out what was known as paganism at this point. They're burning, Caleb, that is a really good point. They could be sailors because they're traveling around the world and back. That's a really good point. I didn't even think of that because I was like, how can you be children and sailors? It's kind of odd, but that's a really good point. I didn't even think of that. So after all the conquests of Northern Europe, someone had to deliver presents to children during solstice, during Yule. They had traditions of someone delivering presents to children for thousands of years, but they couldn't use any of the other people because then that would denounce Christianity. So they used a person that was from and recognized as a saint. So traditions, let's see, where did it go? I lost my spot. In some countries, including parts of Austria and Germany, the present giver became Christ kind, which a golden-haired baby with wings who symbolized the newborn baby Jesus, which is where a lot of the angel came from. Also, the angel Gabriel, who told Mother Mary about carrying Yeshua. In early U.S., his name was Kris Kringle, from Chris Kind. Later, Dutch settlers in the U.S. took old stories of St. Nicholas with them and Kris Kringle, kind of similar together. Kris Kringle was Father Christmas, Odin, kind of put together. And Kris Kringle and St. Nicholas became Sinterklaas, or as we now say, Santa Claus. Many countries, especially ones in Europe, celebrate St. Nicholas Day, which is actually December 6th. That's the Catholic holiday for the patron saint. In the Netherlands and other European countries, children leave clogs or shoes out on the 5th of December, St. Nicholas Eve, to be filled with presents. They also believe that if they leave some hay and carrots in their shoes, that Sinterklaas's horse will be left some sweets. So that's also where the legend of, or the tradition of putting out cookies and milk and celery and carrots came from. So like I said, there's so much information just around this one character that I could literally talk for 5 hours. The other big one is this beautiful thing behind me, the Christmas tree. Why do we have a Christmas tree? Well, like I spoke on earlier about evergreens, evergreen being a very, very, very important part of this time of year, as a reminder of new hope and new life and everlasting life for the Christians. The Christmas tree, sorry, I lost my thought again in my notes. Okay, the first documented use of the tree at Christmas and New Year or solstice celebrations is argued between the cities of Tallinn and Estonia and Latvia. Both claim that they had the first trees, Tallinn in 1441 and Regina in 1510. Both trees were put up by the Brotherhood of Blackheads, which is an association of local unmarried merchants, ship owners, and foreigners on what is now Estonia. Little is known about either tree apart from that they were put in the middle of town square, were danced around by the Brotherhood of Blackheads, and were then set on fire. this is like the custom of the Yule log. So we'll talk about the Yule log when we get to the rituals that I'm going to give to you that you can do in your own home. But the word used for tree could also mean mast or post, like paradise trees. The tree might have been like a paradise tree or tree shaped like a wooden candelabra rather than a real tree. So they're not really sure if it looked like what we have today, but there's also other reasonings as to why we have the triangle tree. If you look through the majority of spirituality, everything is threefold. Kayla and I just had this conversation yesterday. Head, the heart, body, soul, spirit, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, all of those things. So that has a lot to do with why they ended up bringing in the tree, because the evergreen itself looks like a triangle. So like I said, depending on which way you want to go would depend on what your tree is about. My personal belief around my tree and why I bring in a real tree and don't have a fake tree. One, I know that not clearing out the forest and taking care of the forest actually causes wildfires. So I know that I am actually helping the forest by taking out a tree. And I usually go and cut down a tree. It was a whole different story this year. However, this tree did come from a very awesome farm, and they do some really cool things. So, but it's important to me to have a real tree in my house because of the symbolism in my world as far as what the evergreen is, the scents, the smells, what it represents. Fir, and this is a fir tree. Fir in general is a protection plant, flower. It's not a flower, it's a tree. So that there's also that level too. There's also many legends and so many darker sides of this time of year. I guess you could say dark. I don't really know. I don't necessarily think that way, but legends like the tale of Gryla. Gryla was a giant witch who had Yule lads who would come down from the mountains, and she'd send her Yule lads, and they'd cause all kind of mischief and havoc, and they'd steal children and kidnap children, and yeah, so there's that legend. And then there's the legend of Krampus, which I actually just got a little bit more information on. And I have to say, I'm not really into telling my children about Krampus because he's a scary demon and they don't need to know about that. But it's still an interesting belief, thought process. And I understand where it comes from. Yeah, I know, me too, Andrea. It was actually really funny. Like Neil and I were sitting watching the Krampus movie, like, is this for real? Then I had to look up and then I had to look up what the Krampus was, and for real. And it was kind of interesting. He's definitely a dark character when it comes to this time of year, but he's the shadow of Santa Claus, Saint Nick. So everything that Saint Nick represents and what everything Saint Nick does, happiness, joy, peace, prosperity, giving, all of those things, Krampus was the complete opposite. So if you were the bad kid, if you'd stop believing and not having all of those things in you, then Krampus would come and would bring the opposite: destruction, despair, dismay. Take the children, put them in a sack, whip them with reeds. Yeah, crazy. They still, this day in Germany, I have some friends who are German, and I spend some time there. Still to this day, they still celebrate and have a whole parade, and Krampus still runs around and still scares kids and is all kinds of craziness. But it's all part of the magic, right? I guess I had my son call me yesterday, and he asked me about if witchcraft was real, and that if all things are good, and if it's not good, then it's bad, and blah blah blah. And so I got to have the conversation with him that nothing is good or bad. You can't have one without the other. Good wouldn't be good if you didn't have the bad. It's the duality of life. And it's the same thing in our holidays. You have to have the duality in our holidays, or they wouldn't be freaking awesome. They wouldn't be magical if you didn't have some sort of dark or opposite element to whatever it is that we're celebrating. So in the winter solstice, we're celebrating the light king conquering darkness. And the summer solstice, we're celebrating the dark king conquering the light and bringing in the darkness so that we can go into solitude and no longer be at work. So there's a duality to everything. And that was one of my favorite things about diving into the legends, of learning the duality side of the darkness side, and why this was so important to our ancient ancestors and why they celebrated something like this. And celebrations and festivals, even now, are an ease off of our everyday life. So instead of creating a stressful situation around these amazing celebrations, we get to go with the flow and go back to the roots, because the root was not stressful. The root was not freaking out, was not about how much you give or how much you receive. It was not about any of that. It was literally just celebrating existence and what Father God, Father Sky, Mother Earth do for our everyday life, so that we may live and prosper and get to our ascension. And part of easing that is celebrating. We can't just be work all the time. We would go freaking bonkers. I mean, even with the holidays, we can go freaking bonkers. And that's where I lost the last few years. I lost the magic. I was just work. I just had to work as much as I could. I was working in the service industry. I was never really around to enjoy the holidays. I was always being the person serving the person to enjoy their holidays. I wasn't home with my family enjoying the holidays and what they were about. And I was freaking out about getting the extra hours so that I can make sure that I can get this person and that person presents, and not really getting down and realizing, like, it's not about gifts and receiving, and it's honestly just sitting still and being grateful. And gratitude, to me, is the number one part and point of holidays. The number one. Like, if we're not giving gratitude, then what the hell is the point? What is the point? Like, why do it? Why? So that's something that I get to ask myself, and I did ask myself, and that's why I got and decided to teach this, was because I was so tired of going around and doing the same freaking perpetual mundane nonsense that has been going on for at least the last 100 years. And it's gotten worse in the 20th century. And everything has completely gone away from what it was meant to be for. And I got tired and having my own children and realizing that the magic of holidays comes from me. And if I'm sitting around and if I'm like, bah, humbug, screw this, nah, like, that's going to bleed into them. And that's going to be something that they carry on. And I had to think about something with my youngest, because my older son, I love him to death. He's my 14-year-old, and I was very young when I had him, and I've definitely made a lot of mistakes with him. And I perpetuated the holiday BS, like have to get, have the competing with his family, his other family, and making sure that I got him the same amount of gifts and like all this stuff that now at 14 years old, he has no fucking clue what this day is about. That's my fault. My 6-year-old, with me all the time, has been with me since pretty much my spiritual awakening. Is probably the catalyst to my spiritual awakening, if I'm being fully honest. He asked Santa for crystals. The difference in the balance and realizing that and teaching the magic to my son, the younger one, he has understood what this holiday is about and isn't asking for Xbox or PlayStation 5 or any of the other mundane things. He wants things that are going to help. And that was really what the gift giving back then was about. It was taking care of your neighbor. Your neighbor didn't have something. Your neighbor didn't grow flour, but you grew flour. That's what you gave them. You grew apples. Your neighbor didn't have apples. That's what you gave them. That's where the gift giving was. It wasn't, oh, I got something more than you. I can spend more money. Here's a big gift. I'll accept your apple. That's not what it was about. It was taking care of one another and reminding the other person that they're loved and that you're grateful that they made it through the year. Because back then, people didn't. The average age was 20 something. So that's where the celebration comes from. And if we could just get back to the origins and the reasonings into why we do what we do, it brings the magic back. It totally does. I literally have not put on a Santa hat since I was 17. No joke. I have not been like dancing around my house while I'm decorating my Christmas tree with my kid ever. It was always a task. It was just something else I had to get done for holidays. Just something else. I didn't look into why I was doing what I'm doing, why I'm celebrating Saint Nick, why I'm lighting a fire. Now, all of those things to me are spiritual practices. It is a spiritual practice. I am thanking Mother Earth for her bounty and for her wondrous while I'm decorating my tree. I'm thanking Father Sky for the snow and the water and the weather so that we may have a spring and I can grow my garden again. That's what I'm thinking about now. And this year has made all the difference. All the difference is just taking those little expectations. Really, at the end of the day, when you talk about the magic of Christmas, a lot of it comes down to expectation. Expectation, Brianna Lynn said it the other day. Reverend Brianna Lynn said it the other day. Expectation is the number one. Where did it go? I wrote it down. I did it again. There it is. Throw it down. Expectation is the root of all heartache. You release the expectation around what this holiday is supposed to look like, around all the things. It's an instant joy bringer, like instantly. And that's not around holidays. You instantly release expectations. You instantly have joy. Just toss out that perfectionism idea. I don't know if anybody here has watched Bad Moms Christmas. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It is hilarious. It is especially true. We have this idea that Christmas has to be so perfect and it has to look a certain way. And then that's where us women get so freaking stressed because it all falls on our shoulders. Your husband, 5 minutes, or boyfriend, whatever, sitting on the couch. Oh, honey, did you get the Christmas shopping done? You want to turn around and slap him like, yo, I got the Christmas shopping done like 2 months ago or last week. Thanks for now asking. All that stuff falls on us. So that's why we get so stressed. But release the feeling that you need to make it perfect. Because it's going to be magical no matter what it fucking looks like. No matter what. It's magic. And if you can, try to pre-plan whatever you can. I have 2 kids. Okay, I have to pre-plan when I wrap my Christmas presents. Have to. Because if not, especially with the ages that they are, they're running into my room, they're running out of my room, they're running into the garage. Mom, what are you doing? I have to plan a time to sit down and wrap presents. One of my favorite things to do is, because I don't ever buy them, I don't ever just go out and be like, hey, it's Christmas shopping. I like do here and there. So I'll pre-package. Like if it's clothes, I'll put it in a box and I'll write the name on it and I'll put it away. So then when the time comes that I have to sit down and wrap a present, I literally have all my stuff out, just throw a box down, wrap it up, put it away, and go about whatever. So I'm not sitting down Christmas Eve, stressed the freak out that I'm having to wrap 70 freaking presents for everybody. I wrap it as it comes. That's one example. Batching your time however possible. I know 2020 is freaking crazy, so this might not be something that we can even do this year. But next year, I highly recommend batching your time, batching it to where you know who and where and what you are willing to do. Don't over stress yourself, especially if you are in a family or future family with your children, future children. Don't over stress yourself, because everybody in the family, I want to see the baby, I want to see the family, I want to see you. Don't do that to yourself. Give yourself time and space, and knowing where you can give energy and where you can't. Example, I've been having issues and estranged with my parents for the last couple of years. But for some reason, around the holidays, so are you guys coming down for Christmas? I live 20 minutes away from my parents, by the way. Are you coming down for Christmas? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, Mom, we have a big, beautiful house. Why don't you guys come up here for Christmas? No, we don't want to. What about snow? Like, Mom, Christmas is weeks away. We have no idea if we're even going to have snow. Well, and I said, hey, look, okay, here's the deal. I spent the first 28 years of my life having Christmases in your house. I now have my own home, my own family, and I do a lot of freaking work to have all of this. You guys want to spend the holiday with us? You're more than welcome, but come up here. We can't come down there. I've done it down there. Number one. Number two, they're on their world's best behavior in my house. They ain't in theirs. And I know that. So what do? Bring them here. Then I don't have to worry about the crazy family nonsense, because I know they're on their best behavior here. So that's just an example of ways that you can still do the things that you want to do, but be able to set the boundaries around yourself and be able to set your limits and batch your time with who you need to batch your time with and who is most important. Along those lines, like I just said, know your limits. Don't overbear yourself. Don't overcommit. That's where a lot of the stress comes in, especially when you have kids. Then you have the whole like Christmas programs and this and that. And my kids are 2 different ages. So I have the elementary program, and then I have the junior high program, and then I have the junior high dance, and I have the elementary party. Like you can get so overwhelmed. So just pick what's important, and that's it. You don't have to commit to every single thing you're invited to. And I had a hard time with that for a really long time, because I was just getting so excited that I was invited to anything in the first place. So I go, and then I get stressed out because I have to go to this party and I have to go to that party. But then it wasn't even fun because I was stressed the whole time. And there's no magic there. Why do it? Why? My favorite and most important part of making your holiday less stressful is giving back. Giving back, whatever that looks like for you. whatever it is, whether you're giving back your time, giving back money, giving gifts, volunteering, whatever that looks like for you. I have never felt so much magic than going down and helping out the soup kitchen just this last weekend. I don't even talk about it. I don't tell anyone I do that. But I went down and I helped the soup kitchen. And mind you, I'm in a position right now that I should have been in that line. Not gonna lie, full transparency. I am in a position right now that I should have been in that line. But the magic that I received and the gifts that I received by seeing the looks on these beautiful babies' faces, getting a present from Santa Claus. That's all the fucking magic I needed. That's it. I didn't need anything else. I didn't need the tree. I didn't need this hat. I didn't need anything else. That was all the magic I needed. And that's really all it takes, is just giving back. We need to take ourselves out of this fucking shit and look outwards. And that's where I got the most out of it. Sorry, I just totally lost it. You guys know me, I'm crying. And go with the flow. Just let it be. Just let it be. So I'm going to give you a couple rituals. I actually have a PDF or a Google Docs that I can send to everybody that has a lot to do with some of these things that I'm going to talk about. Rituals to me are one of my favorite things. I love rituals every day of the week. So I have created a couple of my own that I will share with you. It's kind of a spin-off of a few other things, but I've made it Andreaized. So one of my favorite things to do with my kids is we do on solstice, we've done it for the last couple of years, is we'll make a like a popcorn string with popcorn and cranberries and dried berries and whatever we can fit on this string. And while we're doing so, we are saying blessings to our neighbors, blessings over our family, where we're saying gratitudes. And we're talking about this as we're putting this on the string, and we're putting it all the way down. And then we go out, and I live in Tahoe, so I have trees everywhere. I can decorate, no problem. So we just went out to our front yard and we put the string around a tree, and we thank Mother Earth for her nourishment, and for her and Father Sky for the protection. And we ask that the birds come in and take our blessings and carry them through the neighborhood. And there's two full things. One, I'm teaching them to be grateful, and I'm teaching them to send blessings to their neighbors. And two, teaching them that this time of year is hard for animals too, and they need a little bit of help, and making that and giving them a little snack and having them carry our blessings to the neighborhood is a beautiful thing. So that's just one little, and it's cheap. Buy a bag of popcorn. You don't even need a bag of popcorn. You just get some popcorn seeds and you do it not on the stove. And it's like, I think $1.98 or something like that. And then just a needle and thread. And that's it. That's it. Something super simple, but there's so much magic in that. So much magic in that. One of my other favorites, I put this, there are Saturnalia recipes. So one is a Saturnalia blessing biscuit recipe, and then the other is a Saturnalia dessert recipe. Let me go pull it up real fast. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. Come on, dude. Computer's running slow. Sorry, guys. Got an old one. While I'm doing this, so one of my other favorite things to do for any holiday is set up some sort of altar. Mine is in the process because I like to do it with my kids and have them throw in their own, and Jackson's not here yet, so I haven't started it yet. But anything that is seasonal is something you can put in your solstice, Yule, Christmas altar. So pine cones, evergreens, dried oranges, any sort of anything that is in the correspondences of this time of year. Even the offerings that you can give to your deities, you can put there. Baked goods, mulled wine is another good one to put on your altar. Number one. Number two, it also smells really, really good. I think out of all of the seasonal altars, the Yule altar is my favorite because it smells so good. Like springtime, you can't, I mean, sometimes you can smell it, but they fade. Wintertime, it's literally there as long as I leave it out. So that's my favorite. And I know a lot of us are in areas that are hard to find pine cones and are hard to find winter things. There is a substitution. We're all witches here. We know how to substitute when necessary. Exactly, Jeanette. That's exactly what I was going to say. Essential oils is a great way to do the same thing. I am a doTERRA fan. doTERRA has an amazing holiday line. Holiday Joy is probably one of my absolute favorites. Even though I have an altar, I still have that going in my diffuser throughout the day or this time of year in general. But to remember the reasons and what the correspondences is a huge importance in building an altar. So, and why you're putting that in your altar. Like I'm putting evergreen here because evergreen represents life. I'm putting bay on my altar because it represents prosperity. So when you put things in your altar, have the understanding and the intention of why you're putting them there. That's a huge part of it. What exactly and why I am putting this here. Even say it. I like to say it out loud, especially with my children, and as form of teaching, as I like to say it out loud. I'm putting this here because I'm doing this because. And my little one, because he knows what's up. He doesn't question anything. He's like, oh, cool. All right, this is doing this. Awesome. Well, what about this, Mom? We forgot this one. Hey, Mom, you forgot this stone. Mom, you forgot to put this crystal. Jackson's like, what is this? And why are we putting sticks on the table, Mom? I don't, what? So it's really funny to see the difference between the two of them, especially in like how they are in their spiritual journeys. Jackson's so new and so unaware and like, wow, what is this? And Joel's like, yo, bro, let me show you what's up. And they're 8 years apart. So it's really cool to incorporate future now, whenever, even if you're never going to have children and you have children around and you have nieces and nephews and you're hanging out with them, you'd be like, hey, yo, do you know why we have a Christmas tree? It doesn't have to just be for your kids. So I will send those recipes for the cakes as well in the Google Docs. Being that we're all friends, I'm just going to send them to you in Messenger. That word skipped my brain. And in that document, we'll have the recipe for the Saturnalia cakes, a list of correspondences from food, drink, spiritual, magical intentions, just a list of all the different correspondences that have to do with winter solstice and Yule. And then a couple simple things like bonfires, baking, prayers to welcome the light and honor the dark, like a ritual bath in there too that I put together. So there's a couple different things in there that I can orchestrate with you so I don't have to keep you on very much longer. I'm going to open the floor now for anybody who has any questions. Anything that they'd like to share, any little tidbits that were like, ding, 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 I wish I knew that all along. Please share.
I just wanted to say something. I have heard this, and you didn't bring it up, and I don't know a lot about it, but I did hear that Santa Claus originated from women shamans. And I'll send you I'll try to dig up the podcast that I heard, and it had something to do with the chimney even, so it might be something to add. I don't
why I say what I went through today was history.
Yeah.
You're probably absolutely correct, because all of us witches know that our history was stolen, her story was stolen.
Yes.
So I absolutely have no doubt that what you're saying is 90% true, especially with the pagan religions, being that the women were the ones the women were the priestesses. The women were the ones who would have done all of these things. So thank you for calling me out on that and reminding me.
No, I'm not calling you out.
It was, you
I'm
don't
not
even know
calling
you did, because I knew that you did. It wasn't like you knew you did. I felt that like, oh, dude, Andre, you should have fucking said something, because it's true.
No, I wasn't calling you out. I'm just
No, you weren't. But I feel because I didn't say something.
Don't take it that way.
Calling myself out. How about that?
Okay, but and I don't even remember all the details, honestly, because I just heard it. But I'm actually going to send you the podcast, because you can add this. You can add this to your stuff and research it. You might not be able to find out.
I would love that, because I am more, obviously, her story has been so stolen and has been so manipulated and has been so changed. And one of my favorite things about the belief systems that I am at is that I am no longer been the suppressed, like, poor little woman, like, or you have to stay home and be like, I can be the powerful one. I can be the one. I can be freaking Saint Nicholas. How about Saint Nicole? That could have been Saint Nicole for all we know. And that's one of my biggest frustrations now, and knowing and being in the conscious mindset, and even having the drive to know history, is that the history that I know and that I've been so obsessed with is so fucked. It is so manipulated that, like, a lot of what I think I know, I really don't fucking know shit. And that's the beauty and the amazing part of what we do, is that we really don't know. It all comes from spirit. It all comes from source. And I know that the truth is coming to the surface in multiple ways, because people like us are all seeking it. We're all seeking, like, I mean, we're all about the same age. I mean, 10, 20 years ago, do you think there was anybody besides the small group of people who were actually practicing pagans who even knew any of this information? Or the small group of people who were, scholars? Like, my dad knew the information. My dad's a scholar. He's a history buff. Like, he knew it. But did it matter? Did he teach it to us? No. So the fact that people are now coming to a point where they're even interested in knowing this kind of stuff is really freaking cool. And I see that they're in, like, the next 20 years, what we know as Christmas, this is at least my hope and my prayer, that what we know as Christmas, what we know as this time of year, it won't look like this anymore. It won't look like Black Friday sales. It won't look like people stomping over each other and trampling over their neighbor, and straight up. I think I remember a couple of years ago, there were straight murders at fucking Walmart. Like, what? No more. It's love. Take care of your neighbor. Love thy neighbor. Yes, Kayla, abso-freaking-lutely. We are definitely in a new way of living, and it's honestly so beautiful to be a part of, because I know that every single one of us watching now or watching on the replay, every single one of us is going to be a huge catalyst, and not just the change in our little lives, but in the world. And I'm so excited to sit and witness and watch and be a part of it all. Is there anything else, any other questions or any ritual things that you know about that I didn't touch on that you think I might know about? Any other tidbits? No? Okay. All right, everybody. Well, I hope you all got something out of this class today. Thank you for listening to me ramble and talk about one of my very favorite things, history, her story. The hard part is trying to find the her stories because they're all disappeared and wiped out. So that's the hard part, but it's okay. It's okay. It's all perfect. It's all wonderful. And I know that spirit and source will channel through me what needs to come through. So I love you all so much. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you so much for witnessing me and being a part of my very, very first class ever. All right. I love you all. I have a wonderful day and a happy holiday, and I'll get that document over to you ASAP, and hope you have a magical holiday.